Come on. Come on, you guys had to see this one coming, right? I mean, this is not a surprise. Are you guys surprised? My precious. Hello beautiful people of the internet, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah if you're new here, and I'm so excited that you joined me today. For today's video, we are going to be doing yet another recommendation video for me, and that is my young adult book recommendations. So many people have their own opinion when it comes to young adult fiction. However, I love young adult fiction if it's done correctly. I do not like both extremes. I don't like it being too young, and I also don't like it being too adult either. I feel like as time goes on, authors are kind of blurring what a young adult fiction book is, and it's kind of bothering me a little bit. Why are we putting these very, very adult topics in young adult fiction? Allie Hazelwood, I'm looking at you. In all seriousness, I do think that we really need to step back and really think about what YA is and what classifies a book as YA. I think there needs to be a stricter thing about that. Hopefully that changes, but that's coming from a teacher's perspective, y'all, so I may have a different opinion than most of you. But that is for a different time, that's a different conversation. But today I'm going to be showing you all of the recommendations that I have when it comes to young adult fiction. If anybody ever comes to me and says, Hannah, give me a YA recommendation, these are the books that I'm going to give you. You can't go wrong with any of these books that I'm about to talk about. And without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. I'm sure if you've been around for a while, then you're probably going to guess like 89% of these because I literally talk my head off about them. But we're going to start with some classics that I feel like everybody knows by now. The first recommendation that I have to give you is a series, and it's a well-known series, and that's The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. We're getting another book in this series, guys. This is not a drill. I am sad to report that I had not read these books until I was an adult. I read this whole series last year. I'm so upset at myself for how much I missed, and I love the movies as well. I'm sure you know what The Hunger Games is by now, but just in case you don't, I am kind of concerned. First of all, this is following our main character Katniss, and Katniss lives in this very dictatorship dystopian world that is run by this government, and the rest of them are poor and dying. And each year they have these games called the Hunger Games, where basically they come from each of their districts and fight to the death. And their prize is food. Gotta love that. This series is a classic series, and you really cannot go wrong with any of the books in this series. My personal favorite is Catching Fire, but again, these are just timeless classics. This next one, I was late to the game. I showed up late to the party and you guys were like, what are you talking about? We've been reading these books for years. The Selection series by Kara Cass. Why did none of you tell me that these are so good? I've only read the first 2 books and I'm already hooked. These are so good. Basically, we're following the same kind of plot as in The Hunger Games, except there's no killing involved. Well, in this one, our main character, America, is from a very poor family and is from one of the poorer areas. Well, she gets chosen or selected to be in the running for the prince's wife. And so she goes to the castle and she's in competition of these other ladies trying to win Prince Maxon's heart. I love this series so much. I love this series so much. And if you're just looking for that Cinderella story-ish kind of vibe, I feel like you're gonna get it with this. This next YA book recommendation is a harder hitting read. So please, let me say it again, it is a tougher one to read. So please be aware of that going into it. And this one is The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. If you've ever read anything by Tiffany D. Jackson, then you already know that she's really not afraid to go into those heavier, deeper topics. This one is a retelling of the famous story of Carrie. If you've ever read that story, then you probably know what this one's about. This one follows our main character, Maddie, and Maddie attends this very racist, terrible school in a very terrible small town. And Maddie is white passing. But one day when she's walking down the street, a thunderstorm comes by and it starts to rain, and her secret of being biracial is now out. So there is this video of bullying because of race that goes viral, and it kind of reveals this school's roots of bullying and racism and everything that goes on down there. And to cover all that up, they decide to host a prom where all races are welcome. Guys, this one goes off the rails. This one goes crazy. Just so you know, I warned you. It's a hard read. It's an uncomfortable read, but it's a good one. This next YA recommendation I have for you is Better Than the Movies, and this is by Lynn Painter. I'm sure if you watch anybody else's YA recommendations, this book is going to be on there. Lynn Painter just does it. She does YA so well. I'm not even going to lie, when I first went into this book, I was really kind of scared because we were back in that high school brain. However, I really do think Lynn Painter really tackled this concept, and it's so dang cute. So this one follows our main character, Liz, and Liz really wants to ask this guy to the prom, but she doesn't have the guts to do it. So what she does instead is she asks her like childhood nemesis, Wes, to pretend to date her to make the other guy jealous. And obviously that doesn't really go as planned. And let's just say maybe they're not as against each other as they say they are. It's so cute. And Wes, he is one of the best male characters that I've ever read. I just adore this book. This next book recommendation I have for you is The Summer of Broken Rules, and this is by K.L. Walther. This book is following our main character, Meredith, and every summer her and her family go up to Martha's Vineyard and visit their other family, their extended family, and they play a game of assassin. Well, this summer is very different because this is the first summer that they are going to go up there without her sister, Claire. So Meredith has just recently lost her sister, and that right there, my friends, is the reason that I'm here to recommend this book to you. Yes, this premise is so fun. They're going to Martha's Vineyard, they're playing this big game of assassin, there's even a little bit of romance in here, but the grief representation in this book is the reason that I'm here to show you this book today, because this book does it so well. I absolutely loved getting Meredith's inner dialogue and just how she felt doing this thing that she always did with her sister, but now it's different. It just pulled on my heartstrings unlike any other YA book, and I just absolutely adore this book. Okay, guess what I'm going to recommend to you now? I'm going to recommend to you 2 young adult graphic novels. As you guys know, I love a good graphic novel, and you've probably heard me talk about these before. This first one is called Pumpkinheads, and this is by Rainbow Rowell and Faith Erin Hicks. This is one of my favorite graphic novels of all time, and it's perfect because it's almost fall. Just give you a little look-see into this book real quick. Little map. I just love this book. Let's talk about it. So this one is following our main characters, Josiah and Deja, and they have worked every single year at their town's local pumpkin patch or pumpkin festival every single year, and they usually work it together. This year is different, however, because they're graduating high school and they're moving on to college, and they're not going to be working the pumpkin patch anymore. Oh, if you get any recommendations from me today, let it be this one, especially if you love graphic novels. This one is fall just wrapped up in a graphic novel. Speaking of graphic novels, I know you guys have heard me talk about this one. Sheets by Brenna Thumler. This is actually a trilogy now. There's 3 books in this series, but this one is the first one. You are just gonna fall in love with Wendell and Marjorie. This one is following our main character, Marjorie, and it also tackles grief in here because Marjorie loses her mother, and her family owns this laundromat, and her dad is just so stricken with grief that Marjorie has to run the laundromat by herself. Well, one day, when she's just kind of like minding her own business, this cute little ghost named Wendell shows up in her laundromat. They become the best of friends. It's so cute. Guys, I promise you that you're just going to fall in love with these characters, and I promise you, you're going to love this series, and it's going to make you cry. So you better get the tissues. This next recommendation is one that I'm sure you've heard about, and that is The Summer I Turned Pretty, and this is by Jenny Han. This whole trilogy I recommend to you, and this is actually a Netflix series now. This series follows our main character, Belly, and every summer, her and her family go up to a place called Cousins Beach, where they meet another family friend who happens to have 2 teenage sons. The classic love triangle. The 2 sons' names are Conrad and Jeremiah, and Belly has been pining after Conrad since she can remember. And it's just a story of being young again and embracing all those feelings and learning who you are while also breaking a few hearts on the way. I need to know what team you guys are. I feel like I'm gonna lose friends if I tell you what team I'm on. I'm team Jeremiah. This next one I do not physically own. This was a complete listen for me, but that is Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This is another very hard-hitting book, and you do probably need to be aware of that going into it. This one is a very short audiobook too, so if you're looking for a very short, good, fast-paced time that's going to make you think, this one is it. This one is following our main character who has just learned that his brother has been shot by a gang. Basically, he grabs a weapon and he gets in the elevator and he's gonna go find his brother's killer. So he's riding in this elevator and then some familiar people start getting on, some that he didn't think were around anymore. And they all start trying to convince him maybe this isn't the direction you want to go. This is a short book, but it's going to stick with you for a while. What do you know? Another hard-hitting book. I really like those books that make you think. This one is called Ace of Spades, and it's by this author right here. I am not going to try and butcher their name, but I wanted to give them full credit. This one reminds me a lot of The Weight of Blood, and if you are interested in that one, I'm sure you'll like this one as well. So this one is following our two main characters, Devon and Chiamaka, and both of them attend a predominantly white school. And then an anonymous texter named Aces starts digging up some secrets and some dirt on both of these students. This does have some pretty dark themes of racism in here, so please be aware of that going in. Again, this is a harder hitting book and this is going to make you uncomfortable at some points, but it's so good and it's gonna last a long time with you. Okay, now we're gonna get into my top favorites. I am 99% sure that you're gonna know most of these, but we're gonna go on anyway. Fable and Namesake by Adrienne Young. Well, really just Fable. But I liked Namesake, but really Fable. This series is a pirate young adult series that follows our main character, Fable. And Fable was left on an island by her father when she was very little. Basically, her father told her that she needed to survive, and if she was able to survive by herself, then maybe he'd keep her. And fast forward, she's 17 now and she has survived and she goes to find her father and she gets into some trouble along the way. She gets into some pirate adventures on the way and she meets this guy named West. And we love West over here. You cannot go wrong with either one of these, especially if you're looking for really good pirate vibes. Come on, you guys had to see this one coming, right? I mean, this is not a surprise. Are you guys surprised? My precious. I love these books so much. I love these books so much, y'all. I can't say anything else. There's really nothing to say about these books other than I love them. I love them so much. And this is as far as I am in the series. I refuse to finish the series because I don't want it to end. That's a little dramatic. Again, I'm being a little dramatic, but the Shatter Me series by Tara Mafi. And if you guys have not heard me talk about this series, where have you been? Obviously you ain't been here. But I have gotten a lot of questions about the Shatter Me series, so let me go ahead and fill you in. So this one is a dystopian novel that is following our main character Juliet. And Juliet has this curse or power, whatever you want to call it, that she cannot touch people without killing them. Her touch is lethal. And so this dictator named Aaron Warner, sorry, my ear's starting to ring in a little bit. He finds out about Juliet. He finds out about Juliet's power. And so he decides that he's going to use that for his greater good because he wants to win this whole dystopian war that they got going on. Well, Juliet is not about that and she's like, absolutely not. And she rebels. Just read it. That's all I've got to tell you. That's all I've got to tell you. I also have been asked, does this series have spice? And this is a YA series. So there is one little scene in Ignite Me, but it's very closed door. You do not see any of it. It does fade to black. And honestly, it didn't bother me. And I am a huge stickler for spice in YA, but I think that this was done tastefully. I don't think it was done in a way that was raunchy or anything, and it was very fade to black, but the other books have nothing in them. I cannot speak for the rest of the series because obviously I have not read it, but I can speak for these three. And I also will tell you, if you don't like this first one, you got to at least make it to these two. I promise you, it gets so much better. I don't know if you can see the progression of the tabs, but this should be as much proof as you need. This next series is another series that I have talked my head off about, and that is The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is a very YA Criminal Minds-esque series. It's following this group of teenagers that have these special abilities to be able to help the FBI with their cases. And they each have a special ability to be able to figure out why that person committed the crime that they did. This series, guys, had me in a complete chokehold, and I promise you that it will will you too. I do want to give a disclaimer because I have talked a lot about this series. Books 1 and 2 are great. They are fantastic, and there's really nothing super dark in them. Again, this is like Criminal Minds, if you've ever seen that show. But I will say in books 3 and 4, it does get into some deeper and darker topics. So please go into that knowing that I warned you that it does go deeper and darker. This series, you cannot go wrong. And if I can give you any advice at all, I would say to get them all at one time, because after you finish the first book, you're gonna want to binge the whole series. This next book is also another book that I've talked my absolute head off about, and that is A Lovely War, and this is by Julie Berry. I feel like a lot of people do not talk about this book, and I don't understand why. This is such a good book, and when I found out that it was YA, I really couldn't believe it, because I feel like when a lot of people think of YA, they think of very surface level books. This one is anything but surface level. How do I explain this book to you? This one is following our main characters, Hazel and James. And Hazel lives in London, and James is in the US Army during this World War. And he comes to where Hazel is at, and James meets Hazel, I think it was on an accident, and they hit it off right away. And obviously they're from two different worlds, and there is a big war going on. I'm gonna cry thinking about this book. I just love this book so incredibly much. This was one of the first books that I ever felt something from. At the same time you're getting Hazel and James' story, the people that are telling the story are these Greek gods and goddesses. Now that throws off a lot of people because, guys, no, I don't believe in Greek mythology. No, I don't believe in other gods. But this makes them feel like other characters. It really just does feel like they're telling the story. And honestly, if you know a little bit about Greek mythology, it kind of makes it even better because there's a goddess of love, there's a god of war, and they're in the story telling the story. I promise you, I know it sounds convoluted and I know it sounds like there's a lot going on, but just trust me, you're gonna have to just trust me on this one. It is such a beautiful YA story. And last, but certainly not least, is a recent favorite of mine, and that is none other than Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Hannah is showing you a fantasy book. What is wrong with me? Does this tell you everything you need to know? I loved this book so incredibly much. This one is following our main characters, Peyton and Kai, and they're from different worlds. This is kind of like a Hunger Games-esque plot as well, where there are these dictators and these rich people that are controlling all of the other people, and all of the other people are dying and they're poor. The higher-ups are called the elites, and the people underneath are called the ordinaries. Peyton is an ordinary, Kai is an elite. Kai is a prince. Peyton is an ordinary. And let's just say they meet accidentally in the streets, and Peyton accidentally saves Kai's life, not knowing who he is. All these people see that, so they choose all these other people and Peyton and Kai to be in these trials that are kind of like the Hunger Games. I cannot say enough good things about this book. I was squealing, kicking my feet, throwing up, all of the things over this novel. And there you have it, my friends. That is my lengthy list, my top 15 young adult fiction books that I had to recommend to you today. If you got any good recommendations for me today, please let me know that down below. If any of these sound intriguing to you, or if you've read any of these books, please let me know what you thought about them. All right, my friends, until next time, just remember this world is a better place with you in it, and I love you so much, and thanks for stopping by on my corner of the internet today, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys!